Fear stops us from achieving our true greatness. Are you a professional woman who is feeling stuck, unmotivated, or burned out? Are you worried about your wellness? Are you letting fear stop you from crushing your goals? If you answered yes to any or all of these, then this is the podcast for you. Dr. Charmaine Gregory, Nightshift emergency physician, burnout thriver, and wellness champion, along with everyday heroes just like you, will explore how to face fear in our lives and emerge victoriously.
Hello, Fearless Freedom family. We are back with yet another amazing woman who is going to share with you all of the things that she's up to and how she faced her fears and emerged victoriously. This is Dr. Alison Escalante. She is a pediatrician and a TEDx speaker, writer, and a woman on a mission. Dr. Escalante, you want to tell the audience more about what you're up to and all the great things that you are doing.
Well, hi, thanks for having me on. You know, with that introduction, I'm not sure how to follow up. But
you got this.
One of the things that that I care most about is the way that parents share with me how insecure they feel and how they feel like they love their kids most of all, but they're always getting it wrong. And they didn't get that idea on their own. They got it from what I like to call the should storm. The storm of shoulds in our culture that says we should be doing this, we should be doing that, we shouldn't do this other thing. And if we do it wrong, we're going to mess up our kids. And when I talk about this, it's funny how many parents say something along the lines of, oh, you mean that thing where everyone tells me I'm messing it up, right?
Right.
And so, you know, that's what I'm really working on. And I'm doing it sort of in a multimedia way. I write on my own blog and on Psychology Today. I'm writing a book.
We got to hear more about that. Yes, that sounds
that's
intriguing.
A lot of fun. You know, I don't have a book deal yet, but I'm in the process of kind of shopping it out there. And it's all about this method that I came up with to help people step out of this crushing shame, this fear and anxiety that we feel, with just a deceptively simple, like 3-step method.
Sweet. So there's so many things we could touch on here. Let's see. So can you give us a little bit more about, so you kind of alluded to this, but we'd definitely like to hear more. But how did you get to that point where you even started to develop that method and started sharing that story?
That's right. I think it was a couple things. First was the doctor angle. I was fortunate. I trained at some pretty intense programs as a pediatrician. And so when I was at Duke and University of Chicago. Oh, really? You're a Duke?
Yes, I am.
That's so awesome. Yeah.
So there too.
No way. I did not know that.
Okay.
But yeah, so Peds residency there, you know, we were a regional, even an international center for a lot of high level rare diseases. I saw some really heartbreaking things and some really amazing victories, but definitely at a very high level of intensity. And then I went out into practice, and all of a sudden people were coming in asking for antibiotics for a sniffle and stuff. And I sort of was astonished. But what really amazed me, because what I wanted to say is, but your kid's alive. Look, you know,
right. Healthy.
I don't understand. Why are you here? You know? And, but what I started to realize over my first year in practice was what was underneath this. And it was this tremendous anxiety that somehow I had missed because of the way we do residency training. And it was once I was out in practice with the general population that I really started to recognize how much pressure parents were feeling and how they were worried about really every little thing. So I started to wonder what was wrong. And I had colleagues that had been in practice for almost 20 years at my practice, and they would just kind of shake their heads in the hallway about how the anxiety in parents gets worse every year. And I would look and I'd just be like, but why? So I started studying that, and then I started looking for a solution, and I never expected that I would come up with a solution. I figured somebody had written it, but every book I read had the same message. And it was basically this: you're doing it wrong. You're messing up your kids. You need to do it our way, and stop messing up your kids.
Wow.
And even, some really amazing books have been written over the 12 years I've been studying this. But even the really wonderful books, parents seem to still interpret them as a big list of things they should do that they're not going to be able to do, or they drive themselves crazy trying to do it perfectionistically. So that's really where I was targeting. But then there was the second thing, and that was that.
Yeah, let's hear that.
Well, that was the thing that really got me, right? And that was that I became a mother. Yes. And the book I needed desperately at that point wasn't out there. Yeah. So I actually became a mother at the height of what I'll call the perfectionistic mothering epidemic. No one was making fun of it yet. All the moms looked so perfect and put together. And
not real.
I know, but somehow, even though I know that's not how it is, I fell for it just like everybody else, And so a lot of things happened, and I don't want to just ramble on, but one of the things that happened to me with my first son is he had a very rare version of colitis. It was food protein intestinal enterocolitis syndrome, or FPs.
Okay.
And there were, like, at the time, maybe 2 guys in the whole country studying it. And he had one of the rarest forms because he would basically bleed from his gut from proteins. And I think we over time identified about 8 proteins.
Wow.
So basically my child, and this was at the height of breastfeeding fever, right? So I was getting doctor emails like every day from the breastfeeding research saying your child's IQ will be damaged.
Oh my gosh.
You have to breastfeed.
Right.
And so I went on a gluten, it wasn't gluten-free, but it was basically a soy-free vegan diet. And this is before anyone had heard of quinoa.
Right.
And all the protein supplements had like one of the proteins he was allergic to.
Whey probably in it, right?
Yeah. Or something, or egg or something. And so, and I fed my baby, who basically screamed around the clock. And most people, when they say that, when you parse it out, that's not true. But our kid really did. I mean,
wow.
So we did shifts. And so in the middle of that, and this diet eventually affected me, I started to get dizzy and started having, close to fainting and stuff. And so in the middle of that, you can imagine that my mood was probably pretty week at that time.
Of course, no doubt. Stress.
And I was absolutely convinced that I was the only mom in the world that was totally falling apart and not having as much as fun with my baby as I thought I was supposed to be, because I kind of expected that somehow I'd feel this amazing fulfillment. And I feel that now. But in those early months, it was tough.
Wow. Yes, that is a message that needs to get out. It's funny because, like, when people ask me, like, well, what it's like to be a mom, I was like, well, pregnancy was awesome. I mean, I was blessed with 3 very healthy pregnancies. But then, then the babies came, and the first day was fine, right? But then those 3 months, and by no means did I have the similar experience as you did with a child that had a problem with digestion, but it just was hell. 3 months of hell. But but then just when you feel like you're at your breaking point and you're like, okay, I can't do this ever again, they just turn around, they look at you, and they give you that gummy smile and the drool hanging out the mouth. And it just like recharges something within you. And you're just like, okay, I do love you.
That's right. You know, with my first
Nobody
son,
tells you that beforehand.
I mean, with my first son, my husband and I did shifts and you know, overnight, like one of us would be down in the basement pacing with the screaming baby and the other one would be trying to get some sleep.
Right.
But I'll never forget that he was an early smiler and he was 4 weeks old and my husband and I were kind of holding him on the couch, kind of trying to power through as a couple. And he looks up at us and he just grins. And like his first
gosh.
smile was the full mouth, bright eyed.
Oh, that's awesome.
My husband and I looked at him, looked at each other, and we both burst into tears.
Of course. I don't know. There's something magical about that. It just takes away all the stress, all of the, you know, like pressure that you're feeling. And it just makes you love them.
Yeah, they are pretty darling, aren't they?
They are. They test you though. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So that experience with your son really pushed you towards digging deeper and coming up with the 3-step method. Do you think that was the one thing that kind of...
I think it was part of it, but I mean, I could tell you my whole story of motherhood and we'll be here for 8 hours.
No, is that right?
But, you know, but as we passed through that and as I went back to work at a job where unfortunately the hours were really incompatible with motherhood,
Okay.
you know, although the good part there was that my husband had to take care of our son from a very early age while I was like working weekends and stuff like that. So that was actually, I would say, really good for his development as a dad, you know. But I just still remember, Charmaine, and I think you'll love this because you love fitness. Yeah. I was trying to lose the baby weight so that I could approach getting pregnant again. And, you know, people may laugh, like only a doctor would have it. So like a timeline totally laid out of how I'm going to like approach my pregnancies and everything. Right. But I remember like being on my elliptical trainer, trying to get this workout in, and my son, who was the cutest thing ever. But I mean, could he just play in his pack and play for like 20 minutes? And I just remember him standing at the side yelling at me. And I remember being on the elliptical, just tormenting myself, feeling like if I really loved my kid, I'd stop this exercise and go over there and play with him. But I really, really want to finish this. And I want to do it for me. And then I felt so selfish about that. And I remember like him crying and me crying while I finished my workout.
My gosh. Oh my
and
God.
all of that because I was so caught up in this idea of a perfect type of motherhood and this idea that my kids' needs needed to be met like right away. Right. Even though as a pediatrician with lots of child development knowledge, I also knew that that couldn't quite be right. Right. And that, I would say probably that more than anything, that tension of like, well, where do his needs really lie? And I can't live with this level of shame and this level of fear that I'm letting him down as a mother. And that's what I would say more than anything pushed me to look for something that we could do right in the heat of it, you know?
Wow. 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 That's a great story. Wow. I mean, he's looking at you, he's yelling and oh yeah, that mental, battle of, you know, do I take care of my self-care before I address them, or do I go drop everything for me and take care of them? Yeah, no, it's that struggle is real. That is, I mean,
they always struggle. They always say like put the oxygen mask on yourself first, right?
Correct. But, yes.
But you know what I gotta say is when everybody's screaming and crying, who needs the oxygen mask more? It's not clear a lot of the time.
That's the truth. That is the truth. That is so true. Oh my gosh. Wow. Okay. So this idea blossomed. And so tell us like, so you're a TEDx speaker. That is like a huge deal. So you need to tell us, how did that happen? Right. Were there any fears involved in getting there or?
Yeah. So the whole thing was once I realized I had this 3-step method, I was like, I have got to write this book now because this is the book that I needed and this is the book that I think will help.
Okay.
And then I looked into how to write a book, and guess what? Nobody wants to publish an unknown pediatrician.
Yeah,
So
no, I just don't understand why.
yeah. And so I sort of ended up going backwards, where instead of writing the book first, I did the TEDx first.
Okay.
And that was really fun. You know, I went out on stage in a state of what I call controlled panic.
Nice.
Because I haven't gone into this with a public speaking career or anything, right? I mean, I taught some academic, like, hey, morning reports and stuff like that. But and I'd done some parenting classes, but never like that. And so my first dive in was like all in.
Wow. No, that's great.
But when I got out there, it was amazing. And I realized, it was the connection with the audience, the way that I could hear people repeating my 3 steps.
Nice.
Just that connection on a human level was really powerful. And when I got off stage, I actually said to the guy who leads our TEDx event that I felt like my kid after getting off a roller coaster. Again.
Awesome. Did you have any, so you said a controlled nervousness. So was there anything that you did prior to going on stage? The reason I'm asking you is because one of my big fears, and I've made it very public, is public speaking, right? And so part of the, I kind of have to go through this whole thing before I get on stage and before I get give to an audience. But were there any rituals, or were there any mantras, or was there anything that you did in particular that helped to get you to that state where you were in a state of controlled energy, so you're able to effectively complete your speech?
Right. So 2 things there. One, I think my experience as an athlete for so many years made a big difference. I was a fencer. And
ooh, nice.
Yeah, right. But looking back, I actually think that my whole method, my 3-step method, is something that I did as a fencer all those years, and then rediscovered with explicit words to share with parents later. And so, oh my gosh, you'd go into a fencing bout, and it didn't feel like, I didn't feel excited and looking forward to it. I felt dread and anxiety, right? Okay. And then you'd salute and you'd get in position, and I would just I would find myself taking a deep breath, and I would really look at my opponent. And then very often I would find suddenly I was in the zone, and I would just try different things until I found that opening and struck.
Nice.
And that's actually exactly what this 3-step method is. And that's literally what I did before I walked on stage. So, I think everybody remembers what you're supposed to do if you get caught on fire, right? What do? Stop,
drop, roll.
Right? Stop, drop, and roll. So my method for anxiety, for performance, for parents is sigh, see, and start.
Okay.
So every time you feel unsure, every time you feel anxious, every time you feel a should in your head.
Yeah.
Or even shame, by the way, because shame is usually a should yelling at you. Stop. You sigh. And what you do is you take a big, deep breath in, and then let it out as slowly as possible. I like to blow through my lips because that reminds me to do it really slowly. And that's rooted in polyvagal theory. It moves us out of our anxious fight or flight centers in the autonomic nervous system, and it activates the ventral vagus nerve.
Okay.
So now we're more calm and connected. So you sigh, and then you see. And this is a really fast way to onboard mindfulness, right? So you see your situation. You see the child in front of you. See how that child is behaving. You can see their body language. I mean, you can see in any way, really. I find myself doing this as a doctor much of the time, really see that child's breathing and decide where we're at. And then, and only then, you start. And you can start something.
Okay.
You can start nothing. Maybe you decide to wait for a second, or you can start the wrong thing. But it doesn't matter, because when you sigh and see before you start, you build skills really quickly. And what I love the most about the start step here is that it engages the creative process and it engages self-compassion, because suddenly we're not trying to get it right as a parent. We're not trying to follow the list in that book. We are just experimenting. And if you get it right, that's awesome. You get to store that one away as something you learned. But if you get it wrong, you're probably going to trigger another should. Oh, I should have done it that way. That's okay. What do? You sigh, see, and start again.
Nice. Love it. That's
it
great.
helps, right? So what did I do before I walked out on the TEDx stage? I sighed. I took a look at that curtain, and then I just started walking out there.
Nice. Nice. Love it. Wow. Man. No, that's helpful. You know,
It sounds... Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you were going to say something. Go ahead and say
well,
it.
It just sounds way too simplistic, right? But what's funny about it is I've come to believe over the years that a lot of the most powerful stuff, it is really simple. And I have so many parents now coming back to me and saying, oh my gosh, I really didn't believe you that this would work. And I've been using it in my household, and the whole tone in our house has changed. My child's behavior has changed.
Wow.
I feel different, and so I think that it's deceptively simple. But I think it really does make a difference for us.
No, that's great. Yeah, there's nothing like having the testimonials come back and just like validate your efforts.
That's right. When you can't do a randomized controlled trial.
Unfortunately. Yeah, but I mean, it's that's the best fruit, though. I mean, to see the impact and to see it spread, because I'm sure that it's only going to continue to spread.
Well, that's certainly, I guess that would get into one of my fears, Charmaine, right?
Let's talk about your fears.
But that would be one of my fears, right? Is that you have a good idea and it gets buried and it doesn't spread.
Oh, I see. Gotcha. Well, I feel like you're doing a great job trying to get the word out. So I am hoping and I'm hopeful. I think that it will be something that will catch on. And, instead of you having to seek out the publishers for books, then they'll be seeking you out. This is kind of how things go. It's always because I'm sure Stephen King didn't have someone jumping on his books at the very first set, like he had to kind of push through.
Yeah, I doubt he did.
That's what I'm saying. So it's like, and then look at him now, and there's so many other writers who are in the same boat. So yeah, just because they're not jumping on it right now doesn't necessarily mean that it's not going to be amazing and make a huge impact. So just keep going, and then consider self-publishing. That's another option.
Oh yeah, that's always an option. But yeah, I mean, I think though, what I promised you I'd talk about is that, the deepest fear, and I would say that it's so much better than it was, but it's still there. Okay. Really, most days as a mom, that somehow I'm going to let down my kids, not in a small way, but in some fundamental, really important way. And, I mean, it's kind of just creeps around in the background of your mind.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So how do you feel like you face that each day then? Like, what do you do to kind of circumvent that?
It's funny. It's that sigh, see, and start. When I feel it, I sigh. If my kids are with me, I look at them, and I see how they're doing. And it's funny how often I'll have a bad moment with my kids and it'll trigger that fear. And then they'll go and recover and come back with something and say something wise. And I'm like, no, we're doing okay. Awesome. And you start something. And when the fear hits me when they're not there, I do it in my head. Okay. I connect with my body, and then I imagine my kids, and I think about the good and the bad. And then I start the next thing in my day.
Awesome. Yeah, it just is so interesting to me, and I'm sure there are some other layers to things when we consider, the mom that's working in addition to just straight motherhood and all the complexities that come along with that, and how we can have the whole imposter syndrome definitely plays a role in our daily lives outside of our professions too. So, I mean, it kind of sounds like you're describing that. Like you have all the skills you need to be a great mom, but there are moments when you wonder, like, am I doing the right thing for my kid? Am I going to break them?
Right.
So it's good that you have a method of which you can get yourself out of that that mindset and into a more of an abundance or open mindset. So no, that's awesome.
Well,
That's a
and
huge pearl.
what else is cool about that, Charmaine, is that then you you know, you basically model it for your kids, and then they end up they start doing it too, and that's what's really amazing. And then you get this feeling of like, oh, we really are going to be okay because my kids are now demonstrating resilience.
Nice. No, that is ultimate. As the ultimate word for sure. Awesome. All right. So, we talked about fears. We talked about you've actually given some pearls in our conversation, which I thank you for, because I always kind of like try to hone that in conversations on the show. But you've definitely given some really great ones. So I appreciate that. Thank you. So now I would like to do what is traditional for the show, which is to ask you to fill in the blanks, okay? So first thing that I'm going to ask you is the first sentence is going to be this. It is fearless freedom. To me, fearless freedom means?
Reaching out in love.
Awesome. And then if I am fearless, I will
go for it even when I feel unworthy or vulnerable.
Okay. And then last but definitely not least is my battle cry is?
Sigh, see, and start.
Awesome! Love it. Love it. So in the show notes, I will make sure that we have every way that folks can contact you through social media. Is there anything else that you'd like to share that you feel like people need to check out your TEDx talk for sure? So would you like me to include that in the show notes as well?
Well, I'd love that. But if you go to my website, I have links to everything.
Awesome.
So that's probably the easiest way. And then you'll love this, but I'm actually speaking in a couple months at the Fearless Women's Summit in Chicago.
What?
I know, right?
That is great. Yes. Is this just for is this for women in general, professional women? Like, what is the audience?
That's right. So it's actually cool. It's part of the One Woman Project, and they do these events to empower all women, but also the events then raise money for projects educating young ladies in countries where they might not receive education otherwise. So it's a really cool charity, actually.
Ooh, have to look into that.
Yeah.
That sounds pretty amazing.
Yeah,
cool.
You'd actually be a wonderful speaker for this project, Dr. Gregory, I think.
Oh, really? Maybe I have to talk to the people that are organizing.
Yeah, maybe you can get over, well, they have lots of summits all over the country. Maybe you can use that to attack your fear of public speaking.
Yes, indeed. I'm always looking for opportunities to do that.
But yeah, come to my website's the best place. It's got all my articles. It's got my my poor lonely YouTube channel, and it's got
it's all good. We could change that.
Yeah, it's got my TEDx talk and all that stuff. Yep.
Okay, and that is AlisonEscalante.com. All right. Yes, I will make sure that we have that in the show notes as well. Great. This has been such a nice conversation. And for those of you guys who don't know, Dr. Escalante and I have never met in person, but we have been virtual friends via social media and the lovely technology and connector that it can be these days. So, so this is a great opportunity for us to have a chat and for you guys to participate in the conversation. So there you have it. All right. Well, thank you so much for taking time out to spend with myself and our audience here and sharing your pearls and sharing your experiences. I know that it means a lot. It means a lot to me, and it means a lot to those who are listening, because I'm sure there's at least one or two nuggets that can be taken from this conversation that can be applied to facing fear and emerging victoriously. So thank you so much, Dr. Escalante.
Well, thank you, Dr. Gregory. I love your mission. I think it's fantastic.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you for joining us today on this journey. Fear is all around us. It strives to stop us from achieving our greatness. We have the tools to be overcomers. By sharing our stories, supporting each other, and doing self-reflection, we can do this. If you found value in this conversation today, please be sure to subscribe to and share this podcast with your friends. By going to your favorite podcast platform, leaving a review and a 5-star rating, you will help to get the word out about it. And that is much appreciated. Thanks again for spending time with us. I appreciate your time and your attention. It is my hope that you will punch fear in the face today and that you will be strong, be brave, and unleash your greatness.